5, 4, 3.
Hi, I'm Craig Gralley.
Welcome, Craig Gralley.
Thank you.
The author of Hall of Mirrors, and congratulations on the induction of your nominee, Virginia Hall, into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
The Hall of Fame honors Maryland women whose contributions and achievements have been of historic significance. Can you tell us which of Virginia Hall's accomplishments you are most proud of and why you believe it is important?
Virginia Hall was actually a hero that is very little known in the United States. She was disabled through an accident, hunting accident. She was denied advancement in the State Department where she had worked at that time, because at that time people who had amputations were not allowed to join the Foreign Service. So she quit in disgust, and she was picked up by the British intelligence and asked to be the Allies' first resident spy behind the lines in Vichy, France in the early 1940s. Now, they asked her to just be eyes and ears, just to be there for 2 months. She ended up staying 15. And people who work in the intelligence community know that the longer that you stay in an occupied area, the more likely it is that you'll be discovered. And Virginia was discovered, and she was betrayed by someone she trusted. And she was hunted by Klaus Barbie, who was the Butcher of Lyon, known for and prosecuted for killing over 25,000 people. And her only avenue of escape from Klaus Barbie was over the Pyrenees in the winter of 1942. So here's Virginia. She's in snow up to her knees, climbing over the Pyrenees with her prosthetic left leg, dragging it through the snow. Once she gets over into Spain, she says, "I've got to go back." The British say there's no way you're going back because you're too well known to Barbie. There are wanted posters all around. There's a bounty on your head. We're not sending you back. But she did go back. And she went back with the Office of Strategic Services, the American spy network, on the eve of the D-Day invasion. And at that point, she led over 1,000 Maquis, who were French resistance officers, in blowing up bridges and communications networks and fuel depots in order to make sure that the Germans were not able to advance against the Allied invasion on the beaches. So it's a heroic story. It's a tremendous story that is just really coming out right now. So so those are her accomplishments. And she actually did, in fact, receive the Distinguished Service Award, Distinguished Service Cross, which is the second highest award that is given for valor. And she was the only woman in World War II, civilian woman in World War II, to receive it. So she is recognized by a lot of folks. But the issue is that she was not well known, and that was part of her own doing, because she was an old school spy who decided that she didn't want to blow her cover. President Truman was going to give her the award. She didn't want Truman to give her the award because it would blow her cover, so Bill Donovan gave it to her in his office. So she's a tremendous spy. Greatest spy of World War II.
Wow, a lot of accomplishments.
Absolutely.
Accomplishments. For those accomplishments, were there specific obstacles and challenges Virginia had to overcome to succeed?
Absolutely. There were obstacles overseas and there were obstacles at home. Overseas, of course, she had to dodge the Nazis who were looking for her, hunting for her, because she was such a successful spy. When she came back home, there were obstacles because of gender and disability-based discrimination. I told you that when she was in the State Department, she was denied advancement into the Foreign Service because she had an amputation. They did not allow people with amputations into the Foreign Service. When she came home and joined the CIA, there were institutionalized gender-based discriminatory practices. So, give you an example, is that people who work in what we call case officers, who are case officers have different kinds of grades, up to GS-14 or GS-15. The men were allowed to be a GS-15, the women could only go up to GS-13. So there are definitely discriminatory practices. So she battled the Nazis overseas, and she had obstacles that she faced here at home.
What or who do you think motivated her to do what she did?
That's a very interesting question. I talked to a psychiatrist who specialized in trauma in writing my book, Hall of Mirrors. And he told me, and it was very interesting, that it might not have been in spite of her disability, but because of her disability that she was able to do great things. And that transformed my own thinking in terms of Virginia Hall as a person, and as what disability can mean for some people. In other words, he said that because she had gone through this, she had recognized that she had been given a second chance at life, and she wasn't going to waste it. I have to think also that she was motivated in part, my own personal belief, because she was fighting a regime that had this view of perfection. And the Nazis were destroying and killing people who were not physically as robust as they viewed their people to be. And I believe that she felt that she was fighting for a variety of different kinds of people who might not typically be thought of as good enough.
What do you find most inspiring about Virginia Hall's story?
I find her whole story inspiring. I find the fact that she went back into Nazi France, even when she knew that the Gestapo and that Klaus Barbie was still after her. And there wasn't any hesitation in it whatsoever. She said, "I'm going back." And they said, "No, you're not." And she says, "Well, if you're not going to let me go back, I'm going back with the Americans." And they're going to be. And the Americans were in a bind because they didn't have a lot of people on the ground. They needed radio operators, and Virginia Hall trained to become a radio operator in order to ease her way back into France.
What do you think today's young women can learn from Virginia Hall's story?
A lot of lessons. First one is perseverance. She was faced with so many different kinds of trials. And even when the cards were stacked against her and the odds of success were not great, she gave it her all because she believed in what she was doing. Perseverance is certainly high on the list. I think that there are other lessons to be learned. I think that she was an old school spy who, even though she was given originally a small mission, like a 2-month mission, and she stretched it to 15, she found ways to be effective. She found ways to broaden her charter and become indispensable to the organization. And I think that's another motivating factor. As long as you're following the mission, you know what the mission is, and if you expand your charter, you can become indispensable to an organization.
Thank you for coming out today and sharing Virginia Hall's story with us.
It's a tremendous story, and I'm delighted to be able to share it with you.